Covenant hierarch known as the Prophet of Regret watched through the front viewport into an impossibly dark void. Slipspace was a very strange dimension. It almost felt like the ship was floating in a dark, shrouded room, no signs of light besides the ones protruding from the vessel. They had only jumped not moments ago, escaping what could have been certain destruction from the humans. It was more than a surprise to discover that the planet the foreigners called Tyrene was in fact the humans' home world.
Curious. Why would the gods bury a portal to the Ark beneath the feet of these vermin?
It was of no concern, however. Due to the lack of mining in the portal's burial site, it was clear that only the Covenant was aware of its existence, and soon would be in their possession. Regret turned to see the shipmaster Rul Sulamuti approaching him. His weapons were holstered on his belt. Perhaps he was overcautious, but it was blatant something was wrong. It was unusual for a shipmaster to carry weapons when under no threat of personal combat.
Hierarch, before swift departure, a small number of human orbital insertion pods had managed to land inside the ship.
Regret rubbed the back of his long, slender neck.
Inside? How did they accomplish this?
He said that with more venom than what he wanted to. The situation had soured his mood. He knew that the Prophet of Truth would surely have him killed for his premature arrival among the humans' homeworld, and this small problem wasn't aiding his stress. The shipmaster stood still and calm. Either out of defiance or discipline, he was unsure.
Our shields had been damaged during the descent. A demon managed to use one of our old explosive devices against us. The ones used for their fragile defense stations in orbit.
That would explain the loss of our other carrier.
He sighed out the sentence.
No matter. These insertion pods you speak of, most likely imps, correct?
Yes, Hierarch. We found one. We're holding it in a cell below deck.
The shipmaster rested one of his hands on the combat harness's belt. His energy sword's hilt shifted slightly.
Excellent. Has it revealed anything?
No, Hierarch. But it's being bled to extract any useful information as we speak.
Regret was impressed. He knew that Rule had been given the title of shipmaster for good reason.
A grand job, shipmaster. I would like to see this insect myself.
Buck checked his ammo. Additional mags lined his tack harness. He reloaded his weapon at professional speed, and the counter at the top of the weapon was back to a full 32. Mickey and Dutch stood beside him, doing the same. Dutch's armour stained with blood from the previous engagement.
I still can't pick up the Rookie or Romeo, Gunny. You think they're okay?
Dutch places a hand on Mickey's shoulder.
Relax, Mickey. They probably got their ears off to keep quiet. They'll be stalking little gruntlets in their sleep.
Buck chimes in. Don't worry. Rookie's one hell of a soldier. And besides, Romeo's too much of a pain in my ass to die. Dutch chuckled.
Orders, Gunny?
Buck looked around the now corpse-riddled hangar. Bodies of elites and grunts seemed to line the floor. The mission hasn't changed. That prophet is our target. Buck checks his SOCOM pistol over, making sure it's in good health. His recent stunt wasn't exactly a soft landing. He turned it in his hands, inspecting the outer casing. It seemed to be okay visually, besides minor scratches on the paintwork, and his hood linked with its targeting system. No doubt that the sidearm was still operational. They most likely know we're here after our little shootout, so attempting to siege the bridge isn't going to be easy. Dutch nudges a grunt's body with his foot. Glowing blue blood smears across the purple floor.
Maybe we can draw him out. Ambush him where it's least expected.
That's not gonna be easy with security on high alert.
The Prophets usually had a personal detachment of Sangheili warriors known as honor guards. Unlike the standard elites, these soldiers wore bright red armour with glowing pieces of protruding ornamental armour. They were also highly trained in close combat. using the favoured energy swords to devastate any adversaries. Although some had been reported to using what could only be described as pikes, was always a chance, but in Elite's hands, still just as dangerous. Maybe we can find a way to blind them. Kill the lights or something.
We'd have to find an engine room and find some kind of kill switch from there. If they even have something like that.
Gotta be worth a shot.
Buck points his weapon at the door in front of them.
Then I guess that's our best bet. Dutch, take point. Mickey, I want you making regular comm checks, quietly. Let's move out.
Romeo's eyes opened slowly. They felt heavy, as if waking up from cryo, only not as frigid. After a few seconds of fighting the grungy sleep trying to take him back into a slumber, a bright light from above showers him, and a figure of a large, slender scale levitates in a chair in front of him. It sure wasn't a nice creature to look at. Its wormy neck and wrinkly skin seemed to shimmer with either sweat or slime under the light. It spoke in a language completely unknown to Romeo. Clicks and sighs seemed to whisper to an elite that stood behind it. The elite was armed, and clearly not in the mood for a chat. "Good morning, beautiful," he said sarcastically. If he was going to die soon, he might as well piss off his captors. The prophet's head slowly turned back towards him. Its eyes had an unusual iris. Alien was a rather poor choice of description. More satanic or devilish. It had a kind of menace in its somehow unthreatening form.
Oh, good. It's awake.
Romeo looked around the room, observing the chamber. It seemed to be a kind of prison cell, with two elites at either side of the entryway. It was open. The energy barrier wasn't active, but the chance of escape was still impossible. Blue rings of some kind of energy shielding kept his hands restrained at head height, preventing him from moving. His head felt heavy. His landing must have been hard. The headache seemed to reveal itself the more conscious he became. "Sorry, gorgeous. I'm more of a one-date kind of guy. How about you loosen these bonds?" He noticed that his hood was no longer visible. His head felt heavy, but his helmet wasn't on his head.
I'm glad you find this amusing, human. But I have ways to change your tone.
The prophet lifted a hand, and the decorated elite in golden armor behind him stepped forward. "Come on, don't be like that. It's nothing personal." A sharp, burning pain snapped through his body. His muscles popped and spasmed beneath his skin. He screamed. The elite held a small handheld device similar to that of a cattle prod, only more alien. Pinks and purples layered the weapon.
I do not seek much from you, human, although you may be of use to me later. I would like to know how many of you there are. Only a simple request.
The smell of burning flesh hit his nostrils, and smoke floated past his eyes. The burn must have been severe. "Fuck you!" Regret flicked his hand once more, and the sharp burning pain returned.
I do not have patience for your games, insect. I will have an answer.
Okay. He squealed through the pain. A sick smile twisted on the wormy alien that floated in front of him. An incomprehensible mumble left Romeo's mouth. The elite looked to the prophet, hoping he had heard him, but clearly they were both unsure.
Repeat yourself, worm!
The elite in gold armor pulled his head closer, uncomfortably close. Romeo could smell the putrid scent of what could only be described as off tuna. Their food can't have been appetizing. Romeo looked up to see the reptile-like eyes staring daggers. He spat, coating the elite's face with blood and saliva. It roared in anger. Mandibles split into the air. A hand bigger than he could picture, wrapped around Romeo's face. It blocked his airways, and the pressure began to clasp around his head. The pain was far worse than the recently used device. If he could scream, he would have, but no oxygen could enter his lungs.
Maybe this will be a better way to die than being tortured by plasma fire.
His sight started to fade into blackness, and resistance was impossible. Breathing begins to slow, and a heavy heartbeat filled his eardrums.
Enough!
Oxygen returns, entering Romeo's lungs at light speed. He coughs as he inhales.
Hierarch, let me crush this parasite and be rid of this filth.
The Golden Elite wipes the blood off his face. Regret turns his chair around to face the Elite. The slow humming of his chair changes pitch as he rotates.
No! His journey is incomplete. He may still be of use to us. Leave him for the time being. Have a search party patrol the ship. A few humans are of no threat.
Romeo, oh Romeo, where art thou, Romeo?
Mickey speaks over the comms. As light-hearted as it seemed, he hoped that the joke would annoy Romeo enough to finally reply. But his tag didn't appear in his HUD. Either he was being dark for a good reason, or he really was dead.
Hey, Johnny boy, hope you're out there.
John Doherty, nicknamed the Rookie. He was the freshest addition to Alpha 9, and they'd been deployed together a few times. He was an exceptional helljumper. Mickey figured that if one of them was still alive, it would be him.
Cutting heads up. Movement. Dead ahead.
Buck leaned around Dutch's shoulder, his assault rifle pointed down the long corridor. As his eyes focused, what looked like a floating squid had appeared from one door and was tinkering with another locked door opposite the one it had came from. Mickey took position, aiming his SMG on their 6. If anything was going to sneak up on them, they'd be getting a face full of lead.
It looks alone and vulnerable. But whatever it is, it's Covenant. Shoot to kill.
Wait.
Buck didn't expect that, but gave Dutch the benefit of the doubt. After all, Dutch had seen plenty of combat, and his judgment could be key to survival. The door that the strange alien squid tinkered with changed from a crimson red to an accepting green. It had just unlocked a door and proceeded through.
What's the holdup?
Hold, Mickey. Give me a sec.
Whatever that thing was, it didn't seem fit for combat. It actually seemed kind of vulnerable.
Buck lowered his weapon. He still kept his eyes trained down the corridor.
So what, it's some kind of Covenant civvy?
Well, it unlocked that door, right? Maybe it's some kind of technician.
A red blip lit the ODST's hoods up in sync. Their motion trackers had picked up movement behind them. Mickey trained his eyes on the corner that they had just turned. Their motion tracker indicated that there was 5 heat sigs, most likely a security patrol, consisting of an elite and a few grunts. Buck and Dutch looked at each other, and then back at the open door down the hallway. It was a small distance, but if they weren't quick enough, they might be seen. There was no other option.
Screw it. Double time it, boys. Get to that room.
The 3 began a sprint, no longer trying to hide the sounds of heavy and rapid footsteps. The red dots behind them began a quicker pace, clearly curious of the sounds.
What's the plan, Gunny? Breach and clear?
No time. Just get in there.
They dived inside, and the door shut behind them. The lights once again turned red. They had entered just in time. Buck was the first one back to his feet. He turned and pointed his rifle around the room. Dutch and Mickey quickly followed suit, their eyes all landing on the strange squid-like creature that floated in front of them. It faced them, more curious than frightened. Behind it was a large station of monitors and symbols that glowed above the purple alloy of its structure. Getting a closer look revealed more of its features. Its head was similar to that of a snake, but it had 6 eyes instead of the usual 2, and it seemed to illuminate the dark room with its bright cyan colour. Its tendrils seemed more like that of a jellyfish rather than a squid, and it was a mystery to Buck to just exactly how it was floating without some kind of technology. It wore no kind of armour or clothing. It was naked. Maybe it was some kind of pet.
Guys? What are we waiting for?
Dutch lowers his weapon first and looked around the room.
It's not a threat, Mickey.
So?
Well, if it opened the door, maybe it can help us blind the prophet and take him out.
Buck lowered his rifle. He looked around the creature, at the monitors. They seemed to be some kind of camera system scattered around the ship. It showed the docking bay, the bridge with their intended target, some kind of mess hall, and
Romeo!
Mickey and Dutch looked at Buck, and then at the monitor. It looked like Romeo was being held captive. He was in a kind of prison cell. A barrier of blue energy acted as a wall and contained the unarmed Helljumper.
I knew he was alive.
The engineer watched the ODSTs as they began pointing at the monitor as they spoke to each other in excitement. Before they could finish their small celebration, the red dots had caught up with them. Just outside the door was 5 pulsing blobs on their motion tracker, and the door was hit by a hard, repetitive knock.
Open the door, Huragok. I wish to check this room.
An elite spouted out orders to the engineer. Its small serpentine head looked at the troopers. They had all turned to face the locked door and had their weapons pointed. With some strange coos and hums, the alien jellyfish looked around the room before landing its triple pairs of eyes on a storage unit in the corner of the room.
What's it doing?
Buck turned his head to watch as it moved over to the large wardrobe-shaped object. It opened it with the press of a button and looked at the 3 humans, waving its tendrils to the makeshift hiding place.
It's helping us.
He said with confusion. Dutch and Mickey looked to the engineer. Buck was right. It was directing them to hide.
It's better than getting shot at.
They all moved to the organic-looking closet. It had slots, clearly made to hold Covenant weapons inside. The engineer looked at them, and then pressed a button with its wispy tendrils. The door came back down and shut, making a hiss as it became airtight. It was a tight space, but manageable for 3 ODSTs. But it certainly wasn't comfortable. Mickey turned on the flashlight attached to his helmet.
I hope this works.
Hey everyone, thank you all for watching. It's been fun writing this part and I'm excited to show you what I have planned next. Also, I just want to say thank you to the voice actors for today's video. They've all done fantastic, and I gotta give mad props to Tadpole because his regret is outstanding. I was really impressed with what he sent me. Anyway, big shout out to my one and only patron, that is Corporal Hot Pockets, and if you enjoyed this video and want to see more like this, make sure to like and subscribe and all that other good stuff. Oh yeah, one last thing. I'm planning to do a regular streams, most likely playing Halo Legendary as well as maybe a few other games. But yeah, I'm going to be doing it on Twitch, so I'll leave a link in the description so you can follow me over there. I'll try to keep you all updated about my times and schedules so that you know when to expect me, but yeah. Alright, thanks again everyone. Peace.